well, what if you made something like Google, but just for travel? And over the course of several years, we built a big business and a big brand around that idea, and ultimately sold that to Kayak for $200 million. To get there, when there's good work that's been done on the product, when maybe there's been some early sales work, but there's no marketing, right? I like to enter pretty darn early. Because if you do that, then you can really own that process of defining, how do we talk about ourselves? How are we going to be different from others? And then, beginning to push this thing out into the market and listen to the feedback, like listen to what the market tells you, right? Because you might have industry analysts who, for example, just say like, that's BS. Like, I don't believe it. And here's why. And look, that's one voice, and take it for just that. It's one voice. But those people can be really smart. They sit in the middle of sort of everything. They're the honeybees of the industry. They go from flower to flower to flower. So listen.
All right, really excited about this one. Today we have on here Phil Carpenter, who is the CMO of Alice Technologies, the world's first AI construction project planning, scheduling, and managing platform that is disrupting the $12 trillion construction industry by saving customers millions of dollars and giving them weeks of planning time back. Seems like an ambitious goal, but Phil is no stranger to disruption through category creation. He's had big exits doing this in the past. I first heard about Phil reading the book Play Bigger, which is, some would say, the book around category creation and how to dominate the market. It's the playbook that Warmly uses, and I'm curious to hear more about Phil's thoughts on it today. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you very much.
All right, so let's get a quick background on you and the companies you help to do category creation for.
You bet. So I'm currently the CMO of a company called Alice Technologies, which is in the construction technology space. And we are specifically focused on an area that I'll describe in greater detail called construction optioneering. And we work with very, very large general contractors and owners, principally in the industrial and infrastructure segments of construction. So that's one area. And then the second, which was earlier in my career, was in the B2C space. And some colleagues and I created what was the very first travel search engine at the time. It was a company called Sidestep. There literally was no such thing as travel search until we sort of scratched our heads and thought, well, what if you made something like Google, but just for travel? And over the course of several years, we built a big business and a big brand around that idea, and ultimately sold that to Kayak for $200 million. Both cases, we were creating categories from scratch. And as a marketing guy, for me, that's really fun. Intellectually, it's my Super Bowl, right? If you can do that, there's a ton of value in it. And I felt really grateful that I had the opportunity to do that once. Little did I know I would have a chance to do it for a second time in my career, and I find it really fulfilling.
Yeah, the first time was a consumer. This time it's in B2B, a little bit different, but the same ambitious play. And it's so cool to take on the giants, to basically make something happen from nothing, solve some of the most nebulous problems, do what no one else can do. It's really exciting stuff.
Yeah, yes, indeed.
So what do people need to know about category creation? We can start there.
First of all, that it's hard and takes time, right? This is definitely a Rome wasn't built in a day moment. And it's hard for so many reasons. One, because, you're carving out white space in a market that's often busy with other players doing other things. And you're trying to define an area of play that is new and different, and then communicate to the market what that is and why it is valuable. So there's sort of an intellectual exercise, that you have to go through first, which is, again, defining what is this sector and how am I going to talk about it in a way that people will understand. And then the next piece of it is it's very execution focused. It's getting out there and evangelizing this new segment and helping people understand again, what is it? Why does it matter to me? And how will I, how will I participate in this segment? So it is hard and it takes time, but it can be incredibly rewarding.
And what are some of the benefits of the category creators or the category kings?
Well, I mean, the brilliant thing about being a category creator is you go first, right? So you get to define the field of play and then, kind of advance your argument and help people understand why it's important. And you have the opportunity to stay ahead of the pack. It's a bit like running a relay race and having, a 30-second advantage. Boom, you're off the blocks, you're out there, you're sprinting down the track, and it's going to be a while before others kind of catch on to what you're doing. But if it's valuable, they will catch on and they will follow. But guess what? You're ahead. Now, it's on you to maintain that leadership. It's not an easy thing to do, but if you can, and if you can just keep sprinting, ultimately the value of the entity that you create can be quite high.
Then you create the flywheel, the brand starts growing, all of your supporters start talking about you, they align themselves to you. I think I read the statistic, it was like 71% of the market cap of the category goes to the category king, and then second, third, or fourth, and et cetera, are fighting for the rest. So definitely huge benefits here. Let's dive into the two pieces that you mentioned, which is defining the category, getting the messaging right. And then we'll talk about the second piece later, but how to communicate the category. So maybe we can go through some of your examples in the past. How did you define the category? What was the process?
So we'll start with the one I think that will be really easy for folks to understand, and that's this idea of a travel search engine. Back when we first did this, there were generic search engines, right? And before Google, there was Yahoo and AltaVista and many others, InfoSeek, right, in the early days of search engines. But there was no such thing as a vertical search engine. No search engine for jobs, no search engine for travel. It was generic search, right? So conceptually, there was this category creation idea of like, okay, well, what if we could do search just within a segment, and we had based this company on core technology that was really distinctive. It enabled basically the engine to go out and capture information that was inherently very fluid. So if you look at the availability and pricing of things like airline tickets or hotel rooms, they change all the time, particularly in air, right? So if you can look at many different places and capture that information and bring it together and hold it for long enough for a consumer to take action on it, that's very distinctive, right? And there was nothing like that at the time. So it took some thought to look at, well, great, we've got this core technology, where could we apply it? And travel was absolutely just screaming at us to begin there because of the nature of the underlying information, and then kind of paint the picture of the advantages that go with that.
Did you come up with the process of category creation, or was that something that you're formulating as you go? Like, we should probably make some noise around this new topic, this new thing, we're going to call it a category without having a name for it.
Yeah, no, I didn't come up with this category creation concept. It existed long before I executed in it. And look, people do it all the time in other segments as well. They could do it in food and bev. They can do it in consumer goods. So they can do it in services, right? So there are lots of different examples of people doing similar things. But I happen to put it to work in two really different areas, Alan. As you said, I mean, B2C, B2B, they can be often different. And yet the tools that you use to make the magic happen are in fact often pretty similar.
Awesome. Okay. So now that you have the right message for this new travel category for Google Search Travel, how did you get the message out there? What was the process, the people that you had to put in place, the time horizon, the planning? Could you start from the beginning?
Yeah. So look, our our feeling was we needed to get kind of the rest of the world excited about what we were doing, and particularly influencers. Right now, this is sort of early days of social media, but traditional journalists at that time were, really influential. And, so I remember when we launched, we had gone out and literally done, face-to-face meetings with the Washington Post and USA Today and all of the other kind of big and influential publications of the time that were going to reach lots and lots of consumers. And we sat down next to them and we showed them what we did, and we compared it side by side against Expedia. And they were stunned. They were stunned at the differences that you would see when you search, hundreds of websites for travel deals all at once, as opposed to just something, just one source. And we made this super clear within the product by adding a feature to it that automatically opened alongside competitive sites like Travelocity or Expedia or Orbitz. When you were searching, you would install this little piece of software, and then when you were hunting for travel, it would compete for you. And it was like that old soft drink process, the Pepsi challenge, where it would go side by side right against something like Expedia. And you'd see, like, holy smokes, like, I can get tickets to Paris for $100 less per ticket. If my family of four is traveling there, I'm saving $400. Like, that's non-trivial, right? Why I should buy a good French meal with that, or three, right? And not spend it on the same airline seat that I would have gotten otherwise. So, harnessing the technology to help make our point was really important in that case. And the same has been true at Alice, right? So Alice is construction technology, and specifically we're focused on the world of construction scheduling with very large and very complex projects, right? So you can think of a nuclear power plant or a 50-story office tower or a highway, right? These are projects on which people are spending an awful lot of money over a long period of time. And we have been able to, again, we base this on very, very powerful and distinctive technology, and then show the advantages. It's, I think people appreciate when you can get in front of them and kind of prove it, right, visually. And when they realize that they can now build the project that they had in mind faster, cheaper, with less risk, they're really excited about that. Because, think about construction as a category. Most projects, more than 80%, run over budget and beyond the original time frame. And what other category do you know, Alan, where it's okay to fail 80% of the time? Right? That's not okay. So being able to show someone, like, look, there's a different way, there's a better way, proving to them that you can do things with this new approach that are distinctive from the past, has been incredibly helpful to us. And again, today, 20 years later, the social media world is incredibly important, right? So we're all over that and using the power of influencers there. Of course, we use media as well, but it's not consumer media. It's not USA Today or, New York Times. It's Engineering News Record, right? Which is the premier, construction focused trade publication, or, it's Kin in the UK. So construction, or the communication piece of it, has once again been super important, because it helps you define the category, communicate what it's all about, and then keep it over time.
I love that. Step one is to have a good product that is differentiated. And I think you said this before, is it's better to be interesting and definitely not boring, and to stick out, be distinct.
Yes.
So step one, make sure you have a good product that is actually distinct and there's a differentiator with the market. And then I guess step two, in this case, is to amplify that, get the right messaging across that would resonate and not land on deaf ears.
fuel the flames, right? You just need to spark that interest. And just like a forest fire that spreads, right? If you've got a really strong product with distinct advantages and you've carved out a world for yourself that is new and interesting, word of mouth will power this, right? And help you drive the adoption amongst the target audience that you're pursuing. It doesn't matter whether it's B2B or B2C. The same principles apply.
So when you're entering a new company, the founders have a vision, the existing leadership has a vision. How do you formulate this vision of what the new category is going to look like? Who attaches the name? What does it look like? How does that process come together?
So first of all, I like to start relatively early, but not at the earliest of stages, Alan. So I've been the 12th guy in my startup experience 3 times. Like if I had a football jersey, it would say 12 on it, right? And what I like is to get there when there's good work that's been done on the product, when maybe there's been some early sales work, but there's no marketing, right? I like to enter pretty darn early, because if you do that, then you can really own that process of defining how do we talk about ourselves, how are we going to be different from others, and then beginning to push this thing out into the market to magnify that messaging. So I think it's critical to start early as a marketing person, because then your fingerprints are all over it, right? And you really own that process that ultimately gets you to category definition and leadership.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, they hire a CMO leader at the 12th employee. They really want you to own this thing. They didn't have someone there before.
And my model has always been, Alan, I build a small internal team of what I call really good athletes, so people who are great marketers who can play across a lot of different sort of marketing disciplines. And then I supplement that with very distinct skills from either individual contributors or small firms, right? So I will hire a PR agency in the countries that matter to me, and usually small to mid-sized, right? I don't go big. And I will hire a graphic design, either a firm or a single individual. I'll look for people who have skills in SEO. I'll look for people who have skills in SEM, right? I don't need all of those skills under the roof all the time, but I need them, right? And I would much rather go out and hire the experts on the open market who are really, really great at certain things and use them as I need them.
In light of category creation, when you first join a company, what's your plan in the first 30, 60, 90 days? How do you think about that?
I think it's really important to start with the larger task of developing a hypothesis of how am I going to define this category. And look, it's informed by a lot of things. It's informed by your knowledge of the customer. It's informed by your knowledge of the product. It's informed by your knowledge of the competitors. And those things take time to develop. But as quick as you can, you're going to kind of want to get to the point where you've got a hypothesis, right? And then you're going to put that out there in the market, and you're going to start to promote the idea. You're going to evangelize the concept. You're going to talk at conferences. You're going to speak to the media. You're going to engage with influencers or industry analysts or all the people in the ecosystem, and start selling your idea. Now, the thing that's also important is to then listen to the feedback, listen to what the market tells you, right? Because you might have industry analysts who, for example, just say that's BS. I don't believe it. And here's why. And look, that's one voice, and take it for just that. It's one voice. But those people can be really smart. They sit in the middle of sort of everything, the honeybees of the industry. They go from flower to flower to flower. So listen, right? For goodness sakes, listen to what the customers have to say, right? Because sometimes, you get out there with this hypothetical, positioning as you work to define your category, and you'll have customers who tell you like, look, that's not working for me, or I don't think it's quite right, but it's close and it could be this. And then be willing to tune it, right? Because I think that's very important with this category creation concept. It's quite fluid, and you may get close coming out of the chute, but you're probably not going to be perfect. I mean, who's ever perfect, right? But you need to be open to tuning things along the way, and then working really hard to have that thinking ripple through everything that you're doing, right? So if you get input from a customer, for example, that really causes you to think differently about how your messaging, then rapidly move to make that visible everywhere. It was funny. I remember vividly a time when I was at Sidestep, and we were doing consumer research, right? So it was the classic, hide behind a mirror, eat a lot of M&Ms, and talk to, have a facilitator talk to people for you, right? And gather information. And specifically, we were looking to crystallize a tagline, right? Which is a very pithy articulation of who you are and what you do. And I remember there was one woman with whom we spoke who looked at our language and she said, "No, you're not the travel search engine. You're the traveler's search engine." I mean, it was just literally, the addition of a couple of characters, right, to that. And for us, it's like, mind explosion. Aha! Wow! She is so right. She is so right. And we then took that and rapidly moved to have it part of everything we did, right? It's on the website. It's on the T-shirt. It's in the email marketing that you're doing. So if you get those insights, like those gifts from the market, just remember, hey, we're playing in a fluid world, and try to bring those insights into the positioning, into the market as fast as you can.
I love that story. I wish we had more customers that gave us those aha, wow, mind-blowing moments. We definitely need to do a better job of getting those focus groups together. One of the channels that I found that'd be really useful for this is actually LinkedIn, and just posting your thoughts out there. Because in my mind, I'm always thinking like, this is what the dream, this is how it's going to look. And then I post it to LinkedIn, and you're right. It fine tunes it, because the real practitioners out there who do it for 10 years, who understand the market, the tool, how they use existing solutions, they'll provide feedback. Like we actually don't want that. Here's what we do want. We don't want a consolidated tool that does everything all at once. We actually want more flexibility, and it's taught me a lot. So any other tools or mechanisms to collect feedback that you're using at Alice Technologies today?
When I was early in my career, I worked at Intuit as a product manager. And we used to do what at that time we called follow me home research. And I worked on QuickBooks Pro, which is their small business accounting product. And what that means is that we would go to the place of business of the customer. And, these were people who were running coffee shops or pizza parlors or daycare centers, like, small businesses, like classic small businesses. And we would sit with them and watch them use the product, right? And it was so informative. It was so humbling, right? Scott Cook, who was the founder of Intuit, he would remind us, he's like, look, you guys, remember that your target market, they're not accountants, right? They think General Ledger was a Civil War hero. Right. So you gotta meet them where they are. And that idea of meeting the customer where they are and going and engaging with them, these days, of course, it's a lot easier because you can do it virtually, right? You don't have to literally go to the place of business. We've been doing an awful lot of that at Alice recently, and I think it's been incredibly helpful for us. We just launched the most significant new product that we launched since the beginning of the company. And the decisions that we made, the decisions that shaped that product really came from these just deep and detailed conversations with customers. And they're so humbling, Alan, right? Because, you think as the product guy or the marketing guy like you, that the deal. And then people school you, and it's so great though, because, from that kind of humbling experience, you realize like, oh, this could be so much better. And I know what I need to do now. And, in our case, look, we were very, very early to this idea of putting artificial intelligence to work in the field of construction scheduling. And, we launched in 2015, AI took off in a crazy way, of course, in 2013. And now in 2024, sort of people are figuring out how to really put it to work. But we were early. We were ahead of the market. And, construction is a segment that is not often a leader in tech adoption. And honestly, we were ahead of the market. And it was from talking to these customers in great detail that what we actually knew then that we had to do was sort of rewind and approach this process in a somewhat simpler way, embrace some existing technology, and again, meet them where they were. And, when you're creating something new, sometimes you can be really far out there. And that's interesting, and it certainly captures a lot of the market's attention. But if you're too far out there, then your product market fit is not strong enough, and the adoption doesn't come. And so in our case, these revelations caused us to sort of make this change. And look, it's early days. As I mentioned, we literally just launched this product, but the feedback has been really good so far. And I'm super enthusiastic about what I believe will happen for us this year, and grateful, like really grateful that customers were willing to help us see the way.
I like that a lot. Even if you have a vision, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to explain the vision all at once. You can just position yourself, the product, so that they'll eventually move into that future vision that you see. And then when that happens, it'll happen and it all makes sense to them then.
Yeah.
But today, something different. Awesome, Phil. Thank you so much for your time. How can people find out more about you?
Easiest thing is to find me on LinkedIn. Just look, Phil Carpenter, Alice Technologies. I'm happy to connect with people there. And, I am a real marketing enthusiast. So like eager to talk to your listeners about the issues that they're struggling with. Always like to, lend an opinion and hope to be able to be helpful.
Fantastic. I'm sure plenty of people will be reaching out. That's my hope anyways.
All
Thank
right.
you, Phil.
Thank you.